Coming up next on Access Framingham, a Drive America trip by car from Framingham to Texas, Florida, and everything in between, with my guests, Elsa and Dave Hornfischer. Stay tuned. Hello, I'm Jack Barron, host of Travels with Jack on Access Framingham TV, where guests share with our audience a recent trip, a vacation, a cruise, or maybe a day trip right here in New England. You'll see their photos and hear about the exciting places they have visited. America's highways are gateways to museums, gardens, sporting events, friends, family, and more. Join my guests, Elsa and Dave Hornfischer, who have been driving the highways and back roads of the USA for many years. On today's program, they share with us their most recent automobile journeys from their home here in Framingham to Texas, Florida, and everything in between. What parts of the world have you visited? Please be my guest on Travels with Jack and share your travel experience with our viewing audience. Just contact us here at Access Framingham Television and let us know you'd like to be a guest. You can phone AFTV at 508-875-5434, or you can send an email message to info@accessfram.tv. One of our associate producers will contact you to make arrangements for you to be on our show here on Access Framingham TV. If you don't live in Massachusetts, we would be pleased to assist with your travel to the Access Framingham studio. And I'm going to welcome our guests, Dave and Elsa Hornfischer, to Travels with Jack. Welcome.
Hi, Jack. It's great to be with you.
They had me at such a long introduction today. So, our audience, let me give you a little bit of biography. Dave and Elsa Hornfischer, 35-year residents of Framingham. They are both currently retired, although they do a lot in retirement. Elsa was a registered nurse. Her last job was with the Autism Center in Southborough, which is also in Abu Dhabi, I think. It's international now. And Dave was Chief Financial Officer at Berklee College of Music in Boston for more than 25 years. They share a son and a daughter and 7 wonderful grandchildren. Currently, Dave is the board treasurer of AFPAC TV, and Elsa has been very active with the Framingham Arts Organizations and the Framingham History Center. Elsa also has been involved in the Framingham Downtown Renaissance. And they are going to share with us today several very exciting road trips. So here we go. Bill, start the pictures whenever you can. We got a lot of them, but fill me in. You left Framingham and you said, we're going to Texas.
Well, we have a son in Texas, and that was sort of the impetus for the first trip down there. And we wanted to bring some things down with them. We had some tables, some chairs, some
no lobsters and clams.
We had you wouldn't believe.
I would have told you lobsters and clams. Forget
well, you wouldn't believe what we could pack into the back of a 2003 Matrix.
Okay. So you took the 2003 Matrix, you hit the gas, and you left Framingham, and you headed to Texas. Did you get maps from AAA? How'd you map it out?
Well, we use Google a lot. I
Okay.
mean, Google planning is a great way. We knew the first day we wanted to get out of New England. I think the first picture that we have coming up here is an interesting map of the U.S. that's all the license plates.
Wow! Look at that. Okay.
We picked this up in in a restaurant in West Virginia and thought that was symbolic of the trip because it has all the license plates that you see while you're driving. And so,
So this was what, real license plates?
yes.
Wow. Okay. So you left Framingham. Is this you getting on the road? I see a little snow on the side of the road. And you got, go ahead, show me the duck. Does it have a name?
You know, it doesn't. And that is a
Okay.
real flaw in our philosophy. Okay.
You know, I don't know if you've ever seen our guest Nicole, who always goes to Europe and she goes everywhere. She's got a little pet hers has a name that she travels everywhere with.
Well, I think we're going to have to name
You got to
her.
name it.
My friend gave this to me. It's an antique duck.
Oh, really?
Just like we are. And we put it on the front of the car.
Yeah.
And it leads us wherever we have to go.
Wonderful. So that's the lucky duck. So you get in the car, you used Google Planning. Do you set up the hotels ahead of time as well? How do you handle that?
Well, usually we set up like 1 or 2 days in advance.
Okay.
Usually, and sometimes if we're going to be in a place for 3 or 4 days, we'll have a Airbnb or a hotel or a resort or something that's set up for when we get there.
So in other words, if you're in North Carolina and you know you got to be in Florida in 2 days, you'll book ahead 2 days for Florida.
Yeah, and maybe South Carolina the next night.
Okay.
Here we are sailing off down the road, and the first day we like to do 500 miles or so.
That's a
just,
lot.
Just to get out of Dodge, as they say.
And this is where? This looks like a nice building.
And this is a sort of a day 2 of one of our trips. This is Kentucky.
Oh.
That's a horse farm in Kentucky.
Okay.
That's has a little resemblance to Churchill Downs with the spire, and we'll see some more of this because Louisville, Kentucky, or Louisville as they pronounce it, I guess, was our first destination on one of our trips, and so we took, I think, probably 2 or 3 days to get there. We didn't go by horse, but we saw this lovely horse and horse country. We're just so happy out in the field there on a cold late January day with his blanket, and it was just sort of symbolic of our arrival at Churchill Downs, which this was sort of, one thing I should say is our trip is often broken into things Dave likes and things Elsa likes. So Churchill Downs was my idea. A couple of the stops in Louisville were my idea, okay?
It's a nice city, Louisville. I like Louisville.
So Churchill Downs, where the Kentucky Derby is run on the first Saturday in May every year, has a wonderful museum. And as we'll go through some of the pictures here's the famous spires at the track. We actually walk down the place where the horses come onto the track when the announcer says they're on the track. And then the next picture is of us actually in the museum. Oh no, that's us with a car. That's the Matrix.
Okay.
That we've taken twice, actually. I think we've done this trip now. We've probably done it probably 4 times. We've done it twice with this
So no
Matrix.
trailer or anything, just the car.
You wouldn't believe what that can hold.
Really? Up.
And so there we are in the museum, and they had a nice hat rack and of sample hats that's part of the Derby tradition, and you can see that we're actually in front of like a starting gate there. And the museum had a theater in the round with the thunder of the horses racing across and all the other pageantry of Derby Day. And it was just a great way to spend an afternoon in Kentucky. The second trip was another Dave stop, and I'm talking a little too much here, but
No,
but
that's
this
all right.
is this was the Louisville Slugger Bat Factory, and I have a souvenir that I brought home from there. The Louisville Slugger was the most
Keep it
famous
still.
name in baseball bats, and that there's my Slugger bat with the inscription.
And Red Sox, because I remember from our trip you shared with
show the
us
rest of the
Cuba
bat.
that you were a big
Let me
Red
hold
Sox
it.
fan.
I want to get the Louisville Slugger symbol.
Yeah, no, they got
emblem.
it.
Oh, they got it.
They got it.
Anyway, that's what we brought home from there, and they actually make
Do
the
they
bats
have a
there.
museum as well?
Oh, wonderful museum.
Louisville Slugger does. Really?
That was a wonderful museum for any baseball fan who's
Really?
anywhere near Mid-America should stop there. It's almost as good as Cooperstown. They have all the bats that they're making for the current players, and this is a piece of wood that they're about to make one from, and
So-
it's pretty amazing.
Okay, slow down one sec. So Back to the Louisville Slugger, they let you go in and see them making the bats.
They show you they're making the bats, and they tell you which player they're making them for.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing for a real baseball fan. This is
And then you moved on to bourbon.
right. This is a this was
I don't see any Maker's Mark. I don't know.
this was a snack that we had at the Brown Hotel
Okay.
in Louisville, which is very famous for making a big brown sandwich, which is a combination of meat and gravy and a whole bunch of other stuff. And along with the sandwich, they bring you a bourbon tasting. And so we sampled
they do a flight.
we sampled a flight of bourbons, and this got us ready for. While we were also there, we did a bourbon factory tour of the Angel's Envy factory, which is a very nice bourbon.
Okay, and that's where? Right in Louisville.
Right in Louisville. And then we also went to a play that night, which was sort of an accommodation to Elsa for putting up. We're not. We're a little ahead of ourselves here. But now we're getting to Elsa stuff. We while we were in Louisville, we went to a wonderful play about the life of Billie Holiday. It was a one-woman show, and it was really terrific. And
So you enjoyed Louisville
Very much.
very much,
Very much, yes.
and the bourbon was good.
if you're a bourbon drinker, and we stayed.
Well,
in
you throw in a
and,
mixer. If you don't like bourbon, you throw something.
And
in
we
the
stayed in a very lovely Airbnb. We had the whole place to ourselves, and it was that was a great. We were there 3 or 4 nights, and
So you spent quite a few
Yeah.
days
Yes,
there
right,
in
yes,
Louisville.
right.
Okay.
yeah, time to do all this stuff. But then after all Dave's sporting stuff in Louisville, it was on to Paducah, Kentucky.
I just have to
Yes.
comment, from a nursing perspective, they have a fabulous hospital in Louisville.
I bet.
Yeah, they have the big, I forget what it's called, National Jewish Hospital. Something. It's huge in Louisville, Kentucky.
I'm old enough to be thinking it's the last thing I'd want to see.
Well, if you have too many bourbon flights, you might need to go over there.
But then from Louisville, it was on to Paducah, Kentucky.
Now, is that where we are now in
That's
Paducah?
where we are now.
We
Okay.
are at the National Quilt Museum,
Okay.
and I just love quilts, and I've made many in my time, and I just love seeing what they're doing.
Isn't that, I never knew there was a quilt museum. So we, just in this short period of time, we've got a baseball bat museum, we got the horse racing museum, and a quilt museum. Okay.
And the Quilt Museum is stunning. It's not just quilts, those are glass, all glass.
Oh, so they do stained glass.
They
as
do
well.
stained glass in quilt style, which is quite amazing.
And who developed this museum, or who runs it?
Well, the South is full of wonderful people who do wonderful things with material and quilts, and
they
it's
support
been-
it.
Oh, it's. I think for a long time it was the center of quilting in the United States.
Really?
It's a nonprofit organization.
a
So there is an
nonprofit.
organization, a quilted, that really runs it.
This is a big deal.
It's a
No,
very
I
big
believe
deal.
it.
Yeah,
Because-
this is- and they have dozens. I don't know how many quilts were there.
Yeah. Oh, dozens and dozens.
All right, you're now where in Cape Girardeau.
Okay, so now we've moved on, and we're headed toward the Mississippi River. And along the Mississippi River are these wonderful murals. And we'll see about a half a dozen of them here. Now you can see the river in the back.
Yep.
But what you really need to know is how big those murals are.
I can see it by the
They
door.
are I would say they're 25 feet long and maybe
10 feet
10
high.
feet high.
Now this is in Cape
And-
Girardeau.
No, it's all along. There were
All
some
along.
in Paducah.
Oh, really?
And yeah, we ended up in Cape Girardeau, but
But every single 20 foot by 40 foot or whatever it was, cement was
Well,
covered
are
with
those
this wonderful art.
Are those part of river flood protection?
Yes.
They are, okay.
Yep.
So they took these that are protecting the overflow of the river and they decorated them, painted them. I
Yes.
got you.
Right.
I got
And
you.
they're stunning. They're just stunning.
Isn't that a great idea?
Yeah.
So our trip is one of seeing a variety of museums, culture. We'll get to some sporting events. We'll get to, and one of the other big things that we like to do is visit friends and family along the way. And I think the next picture coming up is when we arrived in St. Louis. We took a little detour to stop in St. Louis, and there's Elsa can tell you who these people are.
Yeah. My best buddy from high school.
Really?
Yes.
And you went to high school where?
in Simsbury, Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
And
I do business with the Simsbury Inn.
do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I love Simsbury.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just have a wonderful time with them.
And they ended up out there in where? St. Louis?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
They've been there a long time. We visited them a couple times, but this is we're now at the at a botanical garden there, and of course, no trip to St.
big
Louis
guy.
is complete without showing the arch.
Tell me a little bit about the food there. Did you like in Missouri? Did you go to some interesting restaurants? What?
We did. The one near the ballpark.
Well, yeah, we went to a. We didn't really have any special food there, but we went to a. We went to. They have a big museum at the St. Louis Cardinals ballpark.
Okay.
Naturally,
Oh, they
another
have a
connection
museum,
there.
really?
Yeah, they had a lot of Stan Musial stuff and stuff like that. But
See, Fenway could use that, couldn't they?
and then we also went
no,
to
really,
a.
think about it. With Ted Williams and
we
Babe
had a
Ruth.
we had a lovely brunch at the Botanical Museum. No, it wasn't the Botanical Garden. It was at the at the History Museum for Missouri, and there's some
Yeah.
slides of that coming up. But this was at the
Oh,
Botanical
look
Garden.
at the glass. This is the Botanical?
Yes, and that's a Chihuly,
Yep.
which is stained glass, and everywhere we go, there's every botanical garden we visited, they have Chihulies.
Really?
Tell them about the first one.
Oh, the
Elsa.
first one was in Arizona. And we went to the gardens there, not expecting to see anything different. Well, wouldn't you know, they had a huge display of Chihuly glass.
Glass.
Some of it was 50 feet high. People told me that the glass was brought into the
museum.
that area in like 18 trucks with like 40
Really?
or 50 workers, and they had to reconstruct
Well,
all the
museums
pieces
have
of
the space to do.
But this was out in the middle of the desert,
Really?
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
yeah.
beautiful.
unlike the one in
Absolutely.
St. Louis there.
Yeah,
that
he
we
does
saw.
great stuff.
Yeah.
He does great stuff.
But this
Yeah.
was the Missouri History
Now,
Museum.
were you taking Route 66? I see the Route 66
We were on a
sign.
bit of it, and they had a nice exhibit of Route 66 there, and all the motels and places that were along it. But the interesting thing is that when you travel, almost any city that you visit, including Framingham, has a wonderful history museum. And there's just so much in that, and this one in Missouri was no exception. But then it was on to Arkansas, and so there we are being welcomed. And this is at a very famous museum in Arkansas that's in Bentonville that's funded by the Walton family. And
Is this the new museum that one of the daughters just built?
yes,
Yes.
Oh, I read about that. I heard it was spectacular.
And what was there?
they had great art, and they had a Frank Lloyd Wright house, a whole house that they had moved there. And
Yes.
and
I
and
heard
built.
this was actually considered a quite fabulous museum,
Oh,
and
it's
the architects
spectacular.
who put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you love that?
And the artwork there that was spectacular. I mean, it was as good as anything you'd see in Boston or wherever else.
no, I
yeah.
had read an article on that. How
I know. So then,
impressive
one of
it
the other
was.
benefits of a long road trip is just the beautiful countryside that you see. This is a highway going through
Arkansas.
Yep.
Yep. Welcome.
you-
Oh, Hot Spring. Over Bill Clinton. Oh, look at that.
We stopped there, and
I thought he was from Hope. How'd they bring in Hot Springs? All right.
and this is a piece of stone, Arkansas quartz, which is probably the most famous thing from Hot Springs.
Now, Hot Springs, what? Do they have casinos there? What was in Hot Springs?
Hot Springs.
Oh.
We just drove through there.
Our grandson.
No, this is Fayetteville now. This is our grandson who goes to the University of Arkansas.
In Fayetteville,
in
yeah.
Fayetteville, so it was a chance to see David. And then from Arkansas, it was on to Oklahoma, and this is a Cherokee museum that we stopped along the highway, and we
Now,
learned.
how did you come up with all the music? Did Google tell you
No.
when you were driving that this was no? So how'd you say, Elsa, let's go to this museum in Oklahoma? How'd you come up with the different museums and the art museum in Bentonville?
A little research.
You did some research? Okay, so in other words, you knew your road,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you Googled interesting
Right.
places to visit.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You hear about stuff. And in Oklahoma, I think we're the next one is when we. Okay, this is again scenery along the road in Oklahoma, something
Look
you
at
don't
that.
see in Massachusetts. This is
Oh,
the.
wow. What is this?
And then this is the
Cowboy.
National Cowboy and Native American Museum. I forget the exact title in Oklahoma City. This spectacular
Wow.
sculpture.
It looks like a
right in the
Rodin
front.
almost.
And this is a museum not to be missed. The artwork in there is spectacular.
Now, was a lot of this done by Native American artists?
by
or-
famous artists, let's just put it that way. I don't know
Okay.
I don't remember them all, but
Oh,
the cowboy
Dale
thing, this was Elsa's favorite.
Was she from
cowgirl.
Oklahoma?
No, this is.
She was the only cowgirl, and they actually put her in a museum against all those dozens of cowboys.
Good for Dale.
Good
And
for
there's
her.
John
What about
Wayne.
Annie? Well, Annie Oakley was kind of a cowgirl too, wasn't
And
she?
there's a John Wayne image, and the next one is my favorite Western artist, Remington. They had a
Oh, yeah.
ton of Remington stuff in there.
Wow.
They had books that he'd written.
The building looks
handwritten letters.
beautiful, too.
Oh, spectacular. Again, worth a drive to Oklahoma City. But from there, it was on to Fort Worth.
This
and
is a
the-
rodeo?
This
Yeah.
is the Fort Worth stock show, and here's the program, which if you can zoom in on this a little bit. And this was the 121st year in which they had been doing this. And we were there for one afternoon, and we saw all the usual rodeo stuff. Horses, cowboys, bucking broncos, you name it. And there's a little bit of the action there. This is not a job that you'd want.
He didn't hold on the 20 seconds or whatever he's supposed to do.
Right. And that was a lot of fun.
You liked it? Did you both like
Oh,
it?
yeah. Yeah.
Again, this fell into the events category. Now, Jack, I know you like food.
Yep.
And if you're ever in Texas on the way down from Dallas down toward Austin, this is Miller's Barbecue, a place that we found. We looked up good barbecue places. Of course, every barbecue place in Texas is
These are
great.
the places I'd
But-
see. If I did the trip, that's what I'd do. I'd say, I want to go to this restaurant, this joint.
We've been to Texas and had barbecue a lot. This was the best.
Really?
Yeah, they're all
Where
good.
Where
but,
was it between Fort Worth?
Benton. I think it's Denton, I think it's called.
Okay, and this
Between
was
Fort Worth
Miller's
and Austin.
Barbecue.
Miller's Barbecue, and it's been enlarged since then.
I could see. Oh, and they got a New England Patriots
And this
sign.
is our arrival. The day we arrived in Austin, Texas, where this is our son and his wife,
Yep.
and our youngest grandson in Texas, the baseball player.
Well, they must be gutsy to put the Patriots sign up there.
this was Super Bowl Sunday.
Okay.
And we had a party, and this was the year the Patriots beat Atlanta when the big
Because,
comeback.
everybody hates the Patriots.
Well, not at this house in Austin, Texas. And so no trip to Austin is complete without seeing a Longhorn game. And with the name of Hornfischer and the Longhorns sitting behind these horns, I just had to take this picture. And this is a little dark, this picture is, but this is a favorite watering hole that we always stop in called the Broken Spoke
Okay.
in Austin. This is like old Austin. Willie Nelson played there a million times. They've got some nice tributes to him. But then there's always some local music happening that night, and it's just a great spot to visit if you want to see old Austin.
Well, Austin today is one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. There's
Absolutely.
a big demand in Austin. In fact, the housing, I think, has almost doubled or something, I read.
Yes.
It's really a big demand town.
And if you're in Austin in March, this is what you have to see.
The flowers.
No.
What?
More specifically, the bluebonnets.
Oh, the blue. Okay, that's what they're called?
The bluebonnets carpet the fields in the spring, as the song goes.
Oh, okay.
And they're spectacular. This is an up close picture, but you can see in the back that there's fields of these things all along the highways. Lady Bird Johnson was responsible for a lot of this planning, and we often go to the Lady Bird Johnson Gardens, which is just south
okay.
of Austin.
And this is
These
a
are just a-
painting from where?
Just a painting from a museum that we were in that just symbolized the Longhorns, I think. And this is the way you used to have to drive to the West. I threw this one in here. This was a car trip back in the 1800s. Had some dangers.
And this is a Something with Texas. I see the Texas flag back there.
This is Fredericksburg, Texas, a German outpost, and this was an original church in.
Oh, this is a church.
In Fredericksburg, Texas, which is
So what, a Lutheran church?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I don't
And what
know.
else is in Fredericksburg, Elsa? You were going to talk about
The World War II Museum.
there's a World War II museum.
And you were there?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we go when
The
we.
Nimitz Museum.
And how'd you
Nimitz.
like that?
I like it a lot. Our son is a writer,
A naval
and
historian.
He's a naval
really?
historian, so he goes there a lot, and we always check out.
Now, what does he write? Books, screenplays, what?
He's written how many books?
Oh, 4 or 5 books on the history. He is the #1 naval historian in World War II in the country, probably.
Really?
Alive.
Yeah.
lot.
He knows more admirals, and he's getting a big award on the Constitution this year. So
Now,
just to brag
is he
about
also
our
a
son.
teacher? Is he a
No,
professor?
no, he's a literary agent and an author.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
And this was, so from when we get to Austin, after we spend a little bit of time with our family, we have to escape because you can't stay with family for too long. So the next several pictures are pictures of a trip to Big Bend, which is in West Texas.
Okay.
Which is what probably a lot of people think of Texas as looking like. And you can just...
God, Texas
like a
is so
desert.
big. I don't know if I ever had a definite
we
thought.
stayed at the Gage Hotel in Marathon, Texas, which is if you want to you feel like you're in a Western hotel, this is a great place to stay. And that right there, we are right along the Rio Grande River. That rock formation there, the river runs right through that.
Through that rock,
Oh,
on the other
really?
side is Mexico.
That's a piece of the real wall.
Wait a sec. So you're telling me one side of this is Texas
Yeah.
and the other side is Mexico?
Mexico on the
Yeah.
left.
Oh,
yep.
really?
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Yeah,
it
that's
was
a wall.
spectacular. And we could climb up to that. Now,
And this is an observatory, it looks like.
this is the McDowell Observatory. It's the darkest place in the country, supposedly. They have a spectacular exhibit there. And we didn't, the nights we were there, it was cloudy, so we couldn't do one of their stargazing tours. But what you're seeing here is an absolute, I don't want to call it you call it a freak of nature, Elsa?
Kind of.
See how white those trees are in Texas?
It's not snow.
It's not snow.
It's fog.
Oh, really?
Frozen fog.
Frozen
Yes.
fog. Okay.
And the road wasn't slippery, but the trees all along it, you can just see, it's a good
they
view
kind
of
of
it
what,
here.
ice up.
And that just fog just got right on the trees and stays there and sticks.
Now, do they have a planetarium there as well?
Yes.
I believe,
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's, where are we? We're in
We're in
San Antonio,
You
maybe?
got it. Yep, that's the
Okay,
Riverwalk.
very good,
That's
yeah.
if you get to another day trip from Austin is about a 60, 70 miles south of Austin. Is a trip to Fort Worth. Is a trip to San Antonio.
Yeah.
There's just one quick slide of that. And then from Texas, it's on to Louisiana. And sometimes it rains when you take a driving trip.
So you went west and now you're coming back east.
We're
you
coming
looped.
back
To go to
along-
Florida.
Oh,
coming
okay. I got you.
Coming back along I-10.
Oh, look at this.
And that's a Mardi Gras stop.
Yeah, where's this? New Orleans?
That's a Baton Rouge.
Oh, Baton Rouge. Okay, the capital.
And that's Elsa with one of her friends that she met at
A
the...
new
at the-
friend.
A new friend at the...
And this is another what is this? A Mardi Gras museum?
Yes, those are Mardi
Really?
Gras outfits, yeah. It was a beautiful, spectacular museum. I think that was actually in Alabama. But this is the Mississippi River. We're sitting there along the levee. And there's a lot of ways to go through the north to south in this country. One of which was to go up and down the Mississippi. And the next slide is the Natchez Trace, which was the old road from Nashville to Natchez, I guess.
Natchez,
Mississippi.
New Mexico.
Natchez,
This is
Natchez, Mississippi. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We joined it in Tupelo, and that's there was.
Oh,
some
did you? Tupelo, that's where Elvis is from.
yes.
We-
We've
and we-
been there
we've been
too.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Now
this is-
you're in where? Florida?
No, We're almost on our way to
The
Florida. This is
Panhandle.
Biloxi. No,
Oh,
we're not quite
Biloxi,
to the Panhandle.
Mississippi.
This was all built up before Katrina, and the sides of the road here were just. That's the year we actually went in our newer car in our.
Isn't that funny? You
Kia.
know, somebody told me that Mississippi had absolutely the most beautiful beaches and the
Yes.
softest sand, and I never think of Mississippi that
no,
way.
but it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was Biloxi, and there's a couple of big casinos right there. But now we're in Florida, and this is more family. This is Elsa's nephew and his
Okay.
wife.
Okay.
And we are outdoors, and now this gets back to the. Why don't you just skip back a second for a sec? That we were outdoors at a fish camp restaurant. Actually, when we were in Florida, we ended up going to 2 fish camp restaurants. I'm not sure if you've heard of those.
I haven't, so
That's
explain to me.
That's the in thing in Florida these days.
So tell me what it is.
Rustic.
Very rustic.
Interesting exhibits in
When
it
you say-
sometimes.
So is that the name of it, Fish
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
They call them fish camps.
Okay, and what is it? People bring in their own fish, or they what?
No, the fish is good there. It's fresh.
So it's a restaurant.
It's the Florida version of legal seafoods, I guess.
Okay, I got you.
But
I
it's very rustic, and there's another one that coming up in a few more slides that we stopped in Jacksonville. This one.
I think I've eaten at a restaurant outside of Fort Lauderdale called the Rustic Crab or something. You go in and you bang the crab shells and get the meat out of them, and it was very rustic. And I think it was called the Rustic Crab.
And
I
these
could
are
be
some
wrong.
Framingham friends. This is the town historian, Fred Wallace, and his wife
Okay.
Nancy, who we met down in Florida, and had a lovely dinner with them. This is the bed and breakfast that we were in for about half of what you'd pay to stay in a Marriott or something. And
Oh, you went to baseball. This is where?
this is the Red Sox Park in
Oh,
Fort Myers.
wow.
We often, part of the reasons for going to Florida, and again is Elsa humoring Dave, is to go to a couple of spring training games. And
Gee, it looks like a good-looking stadium.
it's beautiful. This is the Tampa Bay's baseball park. Last year when we went to the Tampa Bay Park in Port Charlotte. We usually like to go to 1 or 2 spring training games.
Now, this is interesting. If you look very carefully, you'll see David's head.
I see David,
Okay, well, my nephew is there too.
and he's in the picture.
And he's one of the fun things is to try to,
Do I see him with a hat on, a baseball hat underneath?
Where's Waldo?
I think so.
Opposite side of the trunk is Dave.
I love those banyan trees.
Oh, yeah.
This was at a garden in St. Petersburg. And this is a very famous Framingham person that I ran into in Fort Myers, Florida, Michael Moran, who was the founder
yes.
of the Amazing Things Art Center. And Michael is retired to Florida for half a year, and he's an avid golfer. And so one of our times we had a chance to play golf with Michael, which again fits into the family
You've
friends
actually
piece
visited
of
a
this.
lot of people on these trips.
Well, this is 2 or 3 years worth of trips, but
but I'm just
but
saying,
they're all,
but you visit a lot of people.
we try
do.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun.
And this was a little nature on the golf course.
Now
This was a birdie.
Is this? Oh, look at this. This is a.
Oh, this is
Another-
the Selby Gardens. This
Okay.
is another
My
one of the stops
favorite
for
place.
Elsa.
And where are the Selby Gardens?
Sarasota.
Sarasota. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're on the West Coast.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's several pictures of Selby Gardens.
It's one of the most beautiful outdoor gardens
Yes.
in the country.
Really?
Yeah,
These
it
are
really
all-
is.
Big or?
Oh, it's quite
Yeah.
large and it's on the water, and they always have great displays.
This is a display of bromeliads.
Oh, look at this.
And this
Wow.
was a exhibit featuring Andy Warhol.
Oh, and this, I think, my daughter, who's doing some of the filming, didn't like the idea that we went to a restaurant,
Another fish camp.
another fish camp, where stuffed tigers, stuffed,
Is that a real tiger?
it was.
Oh, really? Oh, my
If
God.
it were live, I wouldn't be here.
No. I knew it wasn't alive, but I mean, so it really was an actual tiger.
Actually, yes. And they have trees all over this restaurant ceiling, and they've got stuffed animals all through the whole thing. So I think Amy would never go with us to this restaurant, but we were there. We were there.
Now I'm trying to read. This says water taxi.
So water taxi out to a restaurant. This was a restaurant that was on an island, and we had to take a boat to get to the restaurant.
And this is where? In Sarasota still?
This was in what key was this?
Down in the Florida Keys.
In the Keys on the West
Oh,
Coast.
okay.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a senior moment on the name of the key, but it was in the it was
like
just
Marco Island in that area.
in the area of Port Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah, off of Port Charlotte.
And they had is this the restaurant maybe?
No, this isn't a restaurant.
Oh,
this is
we don't-
it's a
This-
flea market type
It's
store.
a flea market shop. And this flamingo holds family importance in our house because we have card games, and whoever loses has to bring the flamingo and put it in their front yard.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
Those are classic, those pink flamingos.
they are.
Oh, now we got a real one.
Yeah, not a flamingo, but there's several pictures. We're rapidly going through these, but we've got several pictures here of birds coming up and wildlife on the water. That's another one of the, unlike the fake wildlife that we had with the tiger, there's a lot of real wildlife that if you go out, our nephew there is a real nature lover and takes us to a variety of places where there's wild birds. We didn't see a manatee, but he's taken us to see them, and of course you get a lot of these guys, the pelicans.
Is that a pelican? Okay.
Yeah.
And they come in flocks, and they're just spectacular. I mean, I think to the natives these are just boring birds, but to us New Englanders to see these guys just kind of flying and landing like a major airport.
We don't see those.
It's kind of a fun afternoon. There's the whole flock of them. There's looks like a bunch of airplanes
They're
about
fishing.
to attack a Japanese carrier in World War II, probably, but. And
Some driftwood.
And driftwood always makes for an interesting picture. Elsa's really the photographer in the group, and so a lot of these pictures are some of the
all
more arty
nice and
ones.
clear.
The more arty ones are hers. The more prosaic ones are ones that I took with my iPhone.
I can't tell which is which, but they're all good.
That's right.
They're all good.
That's one of the more fun things. I mean, the thing I like about my iPhone is my camera is always with me. Elsa will say, "Well, I don't have her camera is this big, and she needs a suitcase practically to carry it, and the lenses, and all the stuff that goes with the batteries, and mine is in my pocket all the time. And I want to take a picture, bang, there it is. And the quality's pretty good. It's getting better all the time.
So now, can we go back? Okay, so now we're back in.
We're still in Florida.
Still in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just some wildlife, or not wildlife, wildflowers, I guess.
These are beautiful.
Yeah, I forget where that was taken.
Probably at the gardens.
Yeah.
What, that
Selby
Selby Gardens you
Yeah,
mentioned?
maybe.
Any of the gardens down south that you go to, you won't be disappointed.
Now,
in.
was this a family named Selby who donated it?
Probably.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I don't know, but I'm.
If you're in Sarasota, you really should go there.
It's very.
This was
worth,
in St. Petersburg, in one of the gardens
That's right.
along the river, along the bay there. And now we're getting to, this is just a couple of, the other thing are the sunsets. And Elsa has some real beautiful pictures of sunsets that are quite a collection.
Oh, this is lovely. Looks so quiet,
Peaceful, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we never get tired of sunset pictures, that's for sure. And on the west coast of Florida, you get beautiful sunsets.
And this, you think, is back to Selby Gardens.
No, we're not. We are actually on our way home. We are now coming north from Florida.
Okay.
And this is in Georgia. This was a surprise.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
We're coming up through Georgia, and we're looking at the, we're thinking, well, we should stop in Valdosta because that's about kind of
I've
halfway.
never heard. Where is Valdosa?
Sort of halfway between Fort Myers and Atlanta, maybe. Okay. And we get there, and what is Valdosta, Georgia, known for in March? But it's Azalea Festival.
Oh, okay.
And there are just these beautiful azaleas everywhere.
There we go. I was going to say, so those are azaleas.
Those are azaleas, and this was actually a college campus, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of
That's
the
all
campus.
right.
But they were all over town, and they were having and we landed there on Azalea weekend, and we got there about, huh?
By accident.
By accident, yeah. And we checked into the hotel and we said, "What's going on here?" And they said, "Well, it's Azalea weekend." And really? And so we drove downtown and we drove around and we had lunch in a great little barbecue place, with some southern cooking and.
Well, I want you to know last week was asparagus weekend in Northampton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like Azalea weekend, there was asparagus weekend. And this is a museum in
Atlanta.
In Atlanta,
So
okay.
we finally arrive in Atlanta, and we were going to just spend one night there. And then we heard there was a big snowstorm in New England.
Oh, so you said, well, that's right. You two were flexible. You didn't have
Exactly.
You said, we'll slow it
We're
down
not
a little
going
bit.
there.
We're not going there,
Yeah.
right?
We had booked a one night in a B&B, and we got there, and the place was terrible.
Okay.
And we said, we can't stay here. And the excuse that we made up is the guy had dogs, and we
You were
became
allergic.
and we became instantly allergic to dogs, which we have some allergy, but that was a place that we got away as fast as we could. We ended up in a La Quinta. We had 3 lovely nights in a La Quinta, getting messages from home that it's snowing like crazy.
And
in
stay
New
where
England,
you are.
Stay where you are. And our daughter usually gives us the business that when we travel, New England weather falls apart. And we say it's winter, what do you expect?
I want you to know, this is today, June 7th, I think. I don't know when Bill's going to have the production. I was in Bangor, Maine, Tuesday morning.
Uh-oh.
So June, what was that, the 5th? It was 44 degrees.
I believe it.
June 5th.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, this was a lovely day in Atlanta, so we decided to spend 3 nights in Atlanta, and you'll see some pictures as we get near the end of our show here of the History Museum in Atlanta, the Botanical Garden, and the Jimmy Carter.
Oh, yes,
Library.
you mentioned you went to the
And,
Jimmy Carter thing.
And we have a real Jimmy Carter story to tell, too.
Yeah.
Now, slow down a little bit, Bill, so I can see these. So this is the Carter Presidential Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's his, what, library and museum?
Yeah.
We've actually connected with Jimmy Carter in 2 ways on our trips. One time we were in Plains, Georgia, where they made a museum out of his old, I think it was his high school or
peanut
his
farm.
grammar school, and his
Yeah.
peanut farm was there. And but this is in Atlanta, where they have the research center and a library.
So I was very eager to find out more about whether they had any information about my late brother-in-law.
Who was your late brother-in-law?
John Pennington.
John Pennington. John Pennington was a city desk editor at the Atlanta Journal.
Oh, okay.
And when Carter ran for
State
a
senator.
local state senator,
Yep.
His first race.
his first race, it was clear before the votes were counted that he was going to win.
Okay.
However, after the votes were counted, oh, sorry, Mr. Carter, you lost. Well, everybody that knew voting knew that he had won. And so they made contacts with my late brother-in-law, John Pennington, and said, could you
Investigate.
could you investigate this? And lo and behold, John did, and found dead people had voted, all sorts of strange things had happened. And
This is Georgia, not
in
Chicago.
Georgia.
I only
In
think of
Georgia.
Chicago with that.
No,
Okay.
I think any community probably is
Okay.
could be a victim of this kind of fraud. And at the time, John Pennington was married to my sister.
Okay.
And his son is my nephew that I pointed out earlier
okay.
in the show.
Yep.
And so John Pennington was a wonderful man, disclosed to a lot of newspaper print about what had happened. And that's why Jimmy Carter eventually
He won his first election. If he didn't win that election,
So you're
he
saying
would've-
they overturned the election?
They
or they had a
absolutely
new
did.
vote?
they overturned it.
Oh, really?
Yes, and he became president.
He became eventually.
So I just love Jimmy Carter for that, and I love John Pennington for finding out about this. And so I have books that are signed by Jimmy
Yes.
Carter.
When we were in Plains, we actually bought a couple of books, and they told us that if we sent the books to Carter,
He would
sign
sign
them.
them.
Sign them.
And we told him the story.
Oh, and you told them
We told them who we were.
And he
Yeah.
totally remembered John Pennington, who we. in
Well,
fact,
I'm
he-
sure if the
in
guy
fact, he-
saved his career.
Then there was a news article written by Pennington that was in the Carter Museum.
Oh,
and then
So we
here's
were
the
thrilled.
Jimmy Carter book that.
Can we focus in
that
on
he
the book
signed,
a little bit? There
Keep
it is.
still,
And
David.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
go ahead, open it up.
And
Dale.
I
Show
was
them.
going to open it up to the
Oh, there
signature
you go.
page, and there's the autograph.
Very nice.
But we
and,
Best
love.
wishes. Elsa
Jimmy
and
Carter.
Dave.
Yep.
Yep.
Anyway, that was our. But they had that in the museum.
Now, did you
along-
visit your sister while you were there as well?
My sister is gone
Oh,
too.
I'm sorry.
As
to
is
hear
Yeah.
John Pennington. So John
As
died.
is John Pennington.
Carter even came to see Pennington when he was on his
Oh,
deathbed
really?
in the hospital in St. Pete.
Oh, so he was close
Yeah.
with
And
them.
Jimmy
very
Carter was very short.
Really?
My sister said all the guards were with him going down the aisle of the hospital, and you could hardly see Jimmy Carter.
Really? Isn't that
The
funny?
Secret Service.
I never
I
thought
never
of that.
pictured him short.
No.
Really?
He was 5'9", was he?
And
5'9"?
just,
He's that short? 5'9"?
I think so.
Really? Huh.
But there's a picture here, David. There's one picture, and it's probably not possible
Well,
to look
hold
back
on,
at
before-
it.
We'll keep
before they
going.
run this
Well,
away
no,
from me,
we'll keep
what's
going.
this?
Oh,
Well, this
keep
is at
going?
the Carter. Yeah, this
Oh,
is
this is still at the
this is
Carter.
outdoors at
Yep.
the Carter. It was springtime. The flowers were
was
all just
beautiful.
coming out. It was just a beautiful day.
So this Carter Center is a big piece of property, it
Oh, it's
sounds like.
huge, and it's
Oh, it is? Is it
beautiful.
connected with Emory, or is it?
I don't think
I
so.
don't
No.
know.
No, okay.
Mm.
But it's
I'm
in a
not-
beautiful part of the city that connects with other beautiful places. And there is a college fairly near
Yeah.
there. I didn't.
And this is Carter's
Atlanta
Carter's
has
Nobel
some
Peace
beautiful,
Prize Award.
Atlanta has some beautiful areas.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful city.
Yes.
Yep.
This is what some of the,
Carter's Nobel Peace Prize.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And they have a lot of
Now,
stuff.
this
That's the
picture fascinates me. From a distance, you'll think it's just a picture.
No, it looks like parts of city,
parts of-
buildings.
Well, you are a quick study. Because you're exactly right. And that fascinated me. I've never seen anything like that before. But it actually looks like Carter. But if you look, it's all little, photographs of cities. Even his fingers.
Yeah, no,
I stood
see
in
it.
front of that for about 20 minutes.
Yeah, the Empire State Building is in there. I think the Statue of
Yeah,
Liberty
the
is in
Statue
there.
of Liberty you see way in the back
And the
there.
Golden Gate Bridge, I believe, is in there. And
I forget who did it.
yeah, I don't know.
No.
It was
I'm just shocked that he was 5'9". I always pictured him much taller than
I
that.
think,
Really?
he was bigger than life in his heart, but he isn't very tall at all.
Really? Oh, he has 5 presidents.
And this is a very unique baseball, disconnected baseball and history and politics and everything, and a very unique moment when 5 presidents were together. I think this might have been at Nixon's funeral. I'm not sure.
Could have been.
Really? They're all smiling.
But there's,
They weren't at
but that's Carter and Clinton and Bush and Obama and the senior Bush. And they all autographed the picture and they all autographed the baseball. And I thought that was as somebody who has a collection of baseballs, that's one that I don't have, but that was.
Oh, do you? You collect baseball?
I have probably 50 of them, but
Yeah, that would be a good one with
that's-
5 presidents on it.
but that one is certainly very unique.
Oh, isn't that something?
And okay, Jack, back to one of your food. Here's
Yep.
a little foodie one for you. We had a recommendation for this barbecue place in Atlanta called Fox's Barbecue.
Okay.
And this was better than any barbecue
As
place
good
that
as
you've-
Miller's in Texas?
Almost as good as Miller's.
All right.
And the atmosphere was
You
just
see what I remember.
The atmosphere was fun in here. It was just they had Texas music, and you can see Shiner beer. And they had everything that you could find in Austin. I think the people that owned it and built it were Texans
Oh,
from
you think
Austin,
so?
and so it was just a real fun stop, and we brought home a bottle of their barbecue sauce and.
Well, you know what I love that they do? We have a few restaurants here who do it, but they do that brisket, that southern, and they
yes.
barbecue it and smoke it, and oh my God, it's so good.
Brisket, if it's wrong, is horrible. It's like eating shoe leather. But when it's done right, it just melts in your mouth.
Oh, my goodness.
Miller's was the best. Miller's the only. Elsa's not a big meat eater, but that's the only place in my life where we had to go back and get seconds in a restaurant. Okay.
Well, they do also, like I know, Firefly in Marlboro does the burnt brisket ends.
Oh, right.
That are good too.
Yeah, there's a name for that.
Yeah.
What are they? Well, anyway, our last day in Atlanta was spent at the Atlanta Botanical Garden.
Oh, okay.
And that is a
That was
collection
beautiful.
of tulips, all of which were planted each season. They plant. How many did they have?
I don't know.
Thousands.
Hundreds.
Yeah, I mean, 10,000 tulips. It might have been. They were
Really?
everywhere.
You know, have you ever been to that Vanderbilt home, the Biltmore, I think?
Oh
it's
yes,
Yes.
that's great.
I think they have a lot. I've never been there, but I think they do a tremendous amount of flowers and stuff. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to go there. I should get there.
But you see a theme here between botanical gardens and sports. That's sort of the compromise.
But you know what? They
And,
go together.
And I've become a real lover of botanical gardens.
that's
I even
beautiful.
suggest them. And she says, well, why don't we go to a ball game while we're here? And so
Yeah.
we've kind of,
Try to help each other.
It's what makes a marriage
Well,
last
I
50
gotta
some
tell you
years.
though, I'm a little jealous when you said to me like you mentioned one of the baseball teams had its own museum and dining. I'm thinking
The Cardinals,
Boston should have that. We have a
Boston
great
should.
history.
Well, there is
as
a sports
baseball
museum.
team.
They-
Well, there
there's
is
a
a
sports
sports museum at the garden.
Oh, at the Boston Garden.
It's small though.
But Fenway, I don't know if they have really much of a museum. I mean,
Down where the Patriots play.
the Patriots have a football museum,
in Foxborough.
and that's well worth going to.
I've never been there.
But here's some more
More
tulips.
tulips.
And then there's coming up a picture of the actual one of the
this
buildings
is beautiful.
itself.
This is
The greenhouse.
This is part of the Atlanta Botanical Garden.
really what a
This was a
handsome
spectacular
building.
sight, and that they had water lilies all in that thing in the center there. You could see.
Wow, look at the size of this.
But the real show, beside the tulips that was there, and what was inside this building, was an absolutely spectacular orchid exhibit.
But the building itself is beautiful.
Yes, but the orchids inside here were just. I've never seen so many orchids in my life. Our daughter, again, is an orchid lover, and so we always make her jealous by sending her pictures of orchids from places that we travel to. And this was the most amazing orchid exhibit I've ever seen. I don't know.
You know who was very big into orchids and grew them? Was Raymond Burr, Perry Mason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had a passion for orchids, and I think he was known as one of the largest growers and collectors
Oh, my
globally.
goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would never picture it, but I guess he took his court money and.
That's pretty. I love those colors.
And we have one more. There's another exhibit of the orchids that were in there, and I think
Beautiful.
those are orchids, I'm pretty sure.
All these botanical gardens are very impressive.
We are, oh yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to Vancouver up in British Columbia.
No, never been
But
there.
they have some very fabulous parks and
Wow.
gardens and things that are very, very well known internationally.
Pittsburgh has a beautiful old botanical
Oh, really?
garden. Yeah, it's built in the 1900s, and it's a lot of glass. And Columbus, Ohio, we went there, and they both had Chihuly.
See, you could do a book, you two. You could do orchid. There you go. Gardens and baseball parks. I don't know that.
And if you're getting to the end of the story, there's one more thing. People need to know, where did the car go?
Oh, the car, yeah.
Yeah.
The last trip to Texas that we took with the
Matrix?
is we donated that to our granddaughter, who's now a freshman at the University of Texas. So.
Oh, all right. So,
So that
you
was
didn't
a-
bring the car
so,
back.
So that was a trip where we flew home, actually.
You flew that. Oh, that's
But,
interesting. I like that. You left the car
but,
and flew
But
home.
the last set of pictures coming
Is
up
the Matrix still going?
here. Oh, yeah, 103.
okay.
Well, it had 103,000 miles when we drove it to.
So now you're in Virginia.
Now this is on the way home. This is the last section of the trip, and this was going to be another stop to visit some old friends. I had
Another one of my customers.
I had
Colonial
worked in at Amherst College for a long time back when we were a lot younger, and this guy was a guy that was one of my colleagues at Amherst College, and we hadn't seen them in probably 20 years, and they had moved from Amherst to Williamsburg, Virginia.
Oh, really?
And gotten very involved with historic Williamsburg, so and they took us around.
You know what? I could see that, a similarity between Amherst and Will. You know.
Yeah.
And so we had a lovely two-day visit with them at touring the Williamsburg place, and
You enjoyed that?
Oh, yeah.
very, very interesting. And they had become reenactors while they were there.
Oh, really?
And so they took us to the auction that they have every day. And one of the interesting things that they auction off every day is a bell. They use a bell to open the auction. They go ding dong, and
Yep.
the auction starts. Well, the auction bell gets auctioned off, and our friends had a collection of these bells. And because some days the auction doesn't get a great big price for the bell, and since they're there a lot, they
bid
know
low.
when's a bargain on the bell. But in most days the bell goes for over $100.
Really?
And they're beautiful. They're engraved, and they say the date. And a lot of people go on their wedding anniversary and want to get a bell with their wedding date on it. You know?
I'm going to a wedding in Charlottesville in September. And I told Mrs. Barron, I says, I want to go to Williamsburg. I don't know if she's going to allow me enough time.
Yeah.
She said, I don't know how much I want to do. That's the quote I got.
Well, it's a wonderful day. Let me tell
Well,
you.
I got to tell you too, this was a great show for me. I loved all this stuff.
There we are heading home. That's
Heading
up
home
through,
with the duck.
up
With
through
the duck.
Virginia, up through West Virginia, and on into crossing Pennsylvania, and the snow is there's still a little bit of snow on the ground. I think we came home to some snow.
I have to comment before we finish, though. Elsa, I love that Native American necklace. Was that from one of these trips? Did you get that out west?
You know, I've had it so long I forgot.
Really? Okay.
I
As
get
did
them
my
for
bracelet.
gifts.
I was gonna.
My bracelet was
See?
from Arizona.
That's what I always love to do.
Yeah.
When I have
Yeah.
a trip, I like to get something. I go, or my wife, I'll get her. I say,
Actually,
remember that we bought that in
You
somewhere.
bought me this in
Fredericksburg,
Fredericksburg.
Texas.
Frederick,
That watch.
see, that's
Yeah.
it. You remember
I
where it
never-
was.
Yeah, and this came from Utah.
Please come back with another one of your travels.
We'll think of something.
You think of it, I would love to have you back. And if you go back to Cuba, Dave, give me another visit there or something. We'll see if they're improving things over there.
I have no interest
Well,
anymore.
it's-
No
I've done
more for
my- I've done-
Cuba. He's
I'm
through
one and done on Cuba.
One and done. I don't think they're taking off with their tourism the way they hoped.
No.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.